Okay, I'll get you. You didn't see any in
All
there?
right, Diane, it's 6. You want to go ahead and get started or wait?
You have 6? My clock must be slow. Are these lights? Yeah, you can. Give me just 1 second.
Okay. I love your laptop.
Oh, thank you. It's a city laptop.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you all for joining us. We will call our New York City Council Committee meeting to order for January 24th, 2024. Committee issues for this evening will be either for our February 6th or February 20th legislative meeting. The first item on the agenda for our General Committee will be a resolution authorizing the 4 chaplains and Coast Guard's Charles Walker Jr. Memorial. Is there anybody here from the administration?
Oh, I didn't know. Yes, we're here. Good evening. My name is Susan Burns, and I am board chair of the Gold Star Veterans Memorial Gold Star Healing and Peace Garden. And I have a few board members here from the 4 chaplains, as well as Frank Dittenhafer, who is an architect here in town. And first of all, thank you for allowing us, the garden, to be at Veterans Memorial Park. We opened in 2012. And this is a healing and peace garden that was started by a mother whose son did not come home from Iraq. And a group of us came together and created the Gold Star Healing and Peace Garden. And at this point in time, we have, so it opened in 2012, and now we would like to enhance the entrance to Veterans Memorial Park and sort of refresh the name to Veterans Memorial Park, where Bob Hoffman Stadium is part of the park as well. So at this time, I'm going to invite Frank Dittenhafer to come up and explain all the details about this and how we hope that the 4 Chaplains Memorial will also be established here at the Gold Star Healing and Peace Garden.
Thank you.
And I would just echo Susie's thank you for the resolution that you're going to approve, most likely. And when I was contacted about this possibility to establish a 4 Chaplains and Charles Walker Memorial at Veterans Memorial Park, it was very exciting. But over the past 6 months, roughly, with meetings with the various groups, and looking at the potential, it's gotten even more momentum and is very exciting. So I've given you all a handout. I'm not going to go into detail, but you can see on the first couple pages sort of the existing plan layout of Veterans Memorial Park. It is Veterans Memorial Park, even though a lot of us know it for softball and other things. And there are a number, in addition to the Gold Star Garden, there are a number of other memorials, maybe not as visible as they should be, and so part of this project was to find a good location, a location with dignity and visibility for a 4 Chaplains Charles Walker Memorial, and to improve the visibility of some of the existing memorials. And so in about the 3rd or 4th pages, you will see the location that has been identified, which is, again, in the main vicinity as you enter the park, and there are some of the other memorials. And there would be, again, some improvements to the pedestrian pathways, and then there are a few preliminary drawings for the design, the concept for the design of the 4 Chaplains and Charles Walker Memorial. It's an incredible story. I had heard of it, but I've learned a lot more, and it is quite an amazing story from World War II about the 4 chaplains, and then Charles Walker saving the lives of around 93 people. So it's certainly fitting, and the memorial itself would be a very appropriate place of contemplation. There would be what we're talking about are 5 pylons two-sided, that would have the images and the story and background of each of the 5 persons. And on the other side, really the story of the 4 chaplains and Charles Walker, from World War II. And there would be a very nice paved area with benches, for people to spend time there learning about it, contemplating, and reflecting. So that's where we're at. It's the location. That's what we've been talking about. And we're continuing to meet as a group of various stakeholders to move this forward. So thank you again for the resolution.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I forgot a few things. First of all, we're going to create this so people can go and reflect upon veterans, and also we're hoping to use this as an educational destination, if you will, for our students, because our York County students need to understand about veterans and their families and the sacrifices that they make so that we can even hold meetings like this. So if anyone is listening or any of you are veterans, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. So we will use this also as an educational destination for our York County students. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments from council or questions?
None.
Are there any comments or questions from the public? I make a motion to place this on the February 6, 2024 agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? That carries. This will be presented on our February 6th agenda. Moving along to our next item on the agenda, we have fixing standard citywide fee for non-sufficient funds and stop payments to $40. Do we have anyone from the administration?
This actually came from the Treasurer's Office. As we are one unit for the collection of fees now with the Treasurer's Office and what was the Revenue Office, we have discovered that, depending on the office that the fee originated, that we have 2 different fees for the same thing. This is causing real confusion with the public. It says $35 on our info sheet that we send out with all of our taxes, yet people that have been subject to the same fee through payment of their refuse and sewers have been charged $40. We would just like a consistent across the board, across the entire city, because it's been mentioned that sometimes that happens as well in the permits office when they have to charge for a non-sufficient fund check or a stop payment check. So we're suggesting that we just do $40 across the board for all departments that have the need to charge such a fee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any comments from anyone on council?
None.
Hi, hi, Joe. I just wonder how you decided with $40 versus $35. Is there?
Because it's really a huge hassle to do it, and we thought we shouldn't really go backwards. The $40 when someone bounces a check on us, it happens usually after we've transferred the money because we don't know immediately if it's happened. I have to get the money back from the city, or I have to get the money back from the school district or from the central business district. So there's a huge delay. We have to take it out of our tax collection system. Somebody has to go in and manually remove each one. We have to send a notice out to the individual and let them know. You might think they would know because they would get a notice for their bank, but we're finding that we have to do this as well. And then we have to redo the entire process when we get the payment back in-house, if we get it back in-house. So it's just it takes a lot of time.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions from council? Are there any comments or questions from the public? Is there a motion to place this on the February 6, 2024 agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. This will be placed on a February 6, 2024 legislative agenda. Our next item up is our authorizing an easement agreement with the York Water Company for South Penn Street. I don't see anyone here from Public Works. Kim, would you be?
This came from.
Yeah, I can talk about it because this came from us. We were approached by the York Water Company as they need to run another water line behind Phase 2 of Thaxton Park. So the easement's 20 feet wide, about 535 feet long. The 20-foot width is standard. And let me know if there's anything else, any questions.
Thank you, Solicitor Flowers. Are there any comments from anyone on council?
None.
I have a question,
Yes.
which is, I know that there's a plan at the, with the YCEA to enhance the Codorus Creek, the banks of the Codorus Creek from 10th Street to the other end of the city. I wondered if everybody took into consideration that plan when we're looking at this, and that the water company is aware of that multi-million-dollar plan for the Codorus Creek improvement, and this factors into it, or it doesn't interfere with that.
I can confirm, the placement is specific because it runs into another line about halfway up on that plan. But I'll confirm, going with York Water Company, that they're aware of the proposed improvements.
What'd you say, Brent?
Just that I'll confirm with York Water Company that they're aware of the proposed improvements.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions?
None.
Are there any comments or questions from the public regarding this? Okay. Is there a motion to place this on the February 6, 2024 agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is that 2024? I mean,
Yes.
the 24.
So this will be placed on our February 6, 2024 legislative agenda.
Who made the motion? I'm sorry.
I did.
Betsy. Moving along to our Economic and Community Development Committee. Up next, we have budget amendments for the Bureau of Health, HIV/TB Act 12-315 funding. We have representatives from our Health Bureau here.
So all three of these are budget amendments for extra funds. So the state will usually have some funds extra and they ask you to submit a proposal. So this has already been approved. And we just need to add the funding into the 24 budget. So it's for TB, HIV, and then the Act 12, Act 315. They're like logged by the time a few years back. So by the time we get caught up, usually we have extra funding. So it's just rollover for the extra that we actually received.
Thank you, Samantha. Are there any comments or questions from council?
None.
Are there any comments or questions from the public?
I do have one thing to make note of.
Yes.
In Section 3, I owe the Health Bureau a cost center to go with the account numbers that are listed there, and I'll make sure that that is provided as an update to this document before Diana adds it to the agenda.
Thank you, Kim. Is there a motion to place this on the February 6, 2024 legislative agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This will be placed on our February 6, 2024 legislative agenda. Moving along to our Business Administrative Committee, I will hand this over to Vice President Buckingham.
So the first item is amending the fiscal year 2024 city budget for the Office of Information Technology by appropriating money not otherwise appropriated for other professional services from Fund 70 Internal Services in the amount of $315,000.
All right, that one's mine. This one's kind of exciting, actually. This was a project that was budgeted in '23 and actually got started. But as you know, most great projects are, there's a planning stage, there's a review stage, but before you can actually move on, the components of the project, you got to figure all that out first. So at the end of '23, middle of the end, they did the first phase, and that was paid out of the '23 budget of this project. But now, of course, there was money left over in the '23 budget, and they want to be able to. They weren't sure where they were going to get to by the time we did the budget for '24, and then now they're like, oh, we need to move that money over so we can spend it. But the exciting part of it is that this is actually, this gives us as the city, a redundant point-to-point wireless network for most city buildings. So what that means is at the moment, we have primarily fiber lines coming in for our internet. And there's all kinds of reasons that those fiber lines may go down. Sometimes it's just something with Comcast. And then there's some times that there's some construction going on and somebody cuts our line. And then we're without internet to certain buildings or many buildings within the city. So what this will give us is, it's the redundancy part of it, is that if our main line goes down, IT can refocus everybody to this wireless network that will be restricted for the city operations. So that's always exciting, especially anybody who's lived through our break-in in 2020. We know what it's like to not have internet. And even when I asked Deputy Business Administrator for IT, Josh Houston, to clarify this for me, when he sent me the email on the 18th, he's like, we just had this happen at the Eagle fire station that they're using again for fire operations, that the fiber line went down. So if we had this redundancy, then we can just flip the switch over there and they would be able to keep going.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's right. Are there any questions or comments from council?
I have none.
Any questions or comments from the public? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Oh, excuse me. I think I need to back up and say I need a motion to put this on the agenda for February 6th.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. It carries. Next item is amending the FY 2024 budget for the Dr. Holiday Luncheon in the amount of $8,180.65. And I think...
I'll represent.
Okay,
Yep.
it's a carryover.
This is a carryover, and actually, I'm pretty sure I pulled this from the archive of last year and copied it, because this is a reoccurring kind of mid-year, beginning of the year amendment. This is one of those Fund 26 special project cost centers, where it is the funds that we receive in for this event go to pay for the event. So ultimately, we won't know until the dust settles at the end of 1 year what the kind of rolling carryover that they've received more funds, either through donations directly for the event or they sell tickets for the event, that once they've cleared up all their expenses for the rest of the last event, that it's determined that they have money left over. Now, they do take some of that in consideration. The current budget did take into account where they expected $5,000 in revenue, but they were using, I think, $11,000 total in expenses. So they already took some of that. But now that the dust is cleared, we're like, oh, you actually have more that you can use. And I don't know if anybody's had the pleasure of talking with Claire Toomey, the executive director, but she's got amazing plans for the HRC, and actually is looking like specifically the holiday diversity luncheon. It's been a dinner, there's a luncheon. She wants to expand it so it has the biggest impact to really promote and advertise the good things that are going on within the city and the people who are doing good things that are related to, human relations and employment and housing. So that's what we're doing. We're just asking to essentially take what was left over from last year and make it available to them so they can put on a great event.
Thank you, Kim. Do I have a motion to put this on the agenda for February 6th?
So moved.
And a second?
Second?
Do I have any questions or comments from council? I just want to comment that it's a great event. It's gotten better and better. It was a great celebration last year, and I would encourage anyone to attend if possible. It was great. Do I have any questions or comments from the public? Okay, everybody in favor of putting this on the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? That carries. Thank you. So the next item is authorizing an agreement with Berry, Dunn, McNeil, and Parker LLC for consulting services, grant development, admin, and management. And again, I'll defer to our business administrator for comment on this.
All right, more exciting stuff happening out of business administration. This is an RFP that we sent out last year, looking, kind of taking a foot off of what we've learned using answer advisories for our ARPA funds in terms of realizing that there are people who are experts in these grant management and following all the rules associated with federal and state guidelines in terms of how you can use the money, what categories it fall, all the reporting, all of that. We, at the city, over the years, we've had individuals in the role of a grant manager, and we've had probably 2 in the last couple years. And the last time we were really going into it, and we were like, you know what, everyone's kind of, for the most part, everyone's kind of doing their own thing in terms of fire has someone they work with, police has their person, public works kind of do their own. So what we want to do is we want to build an actual grant management program within the city where it's centralized, where we're making sure that everybody is, of course, doing everything they need to do. We're not missing opportunities, especially opportunities that might be out there that if we combine forces and kind of make a project bigger for an application that actually will get the attention of the grantors in terms of making us look like they're going to get more bang out of their buck from us. So what we decided to do then is to do an RFP to find somebody who will help us. So the goal is they're going to come in, they're going to get an understanding of who all the stakeholders are in the city in terms of dealing with grants. They're going to figure out what we're doing, and then they're going to work on any immediate concerns, of course, if there's any applications that were due, anything that's coming out. They're going to assist us from soup to nuts in terms of making sure that we're putting our applications in properly, that if we are awarded, that we then are administering the programs properly, where we're doing the proper reporting or request for reimbursement of funds, if that's the way we get the funding in. They're going to help us, but they're also going to help us build essentially a grant say a database, but a grant program where we can manage all the grants that we have within the city and what applications we have out. And so Barry Dunn gave us we had 2 companies that we were looking at, and Barry Dunn, we give them credit because we actually submitted the requisition the first time, and we didn't see that we had any responses. And here they actually responded in time, but it was stuck down in a clutter email, account. And we're like, oh man, all right, officially we have already declared this RFP, done. So we ran it again, and they're like, they still wanted us. So they wanted our business, and so they applied again, and actually with even a better program because they had a better understanding of what we needed. So we're looking forward to bringing them in, and the goal with this is to not keep them permanently. We want them to come in and show us how to build our own program that can be sustainable, that we can continue in-house. So that's the goal, is to have them in for a couple years till we get ourselves ourselves organized, because it's definitely on the list of things that we need to clean up in terms of, financials and administration and how we are all kind of doing different things. And I've already asked a bazillion questions to Solicitor Flower, and we always have correspondence about stuff, and this is definitely on the list. And again, learning from the great work that we're getting out of answer advisories, we can see the benefit of bringing in a consultant who are the experts on how to do this so they can help us.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to place this on the February 20th agenda?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Are there any questions or comments from council?
I do have a question. Once we, if we do choose to work with Barry Dunn, McNeil, and Parker, will we then be training a staff person or have a staff person that will be able to then take over this, this role?
Yeah, initially we would definitely have a point of contact. So Dan will love this, but Dan Hebner, my assistant business administrator, he's kind of my, right hand in terms of communicating with any of our vendors. So he would be the main point of contact. But it has been proposed to us to potentially bring in somebody that is part-time, who will be the middle person for the city with Barry Dunn as we work together to build up our plan and making sure that we're catching everything that's currently going on. So with that then in mind is that we're definitely going to need a full-time individual, at least a full-time individual, to take this over ultimately when we're, we've learned what we can from Barry Dunn. So yes, we definitely were going to meet. And like I said, for the longest time, I had a full-time grants coordinator budgeted, and then we just were not having luck getting one or keeping one. So that's why we're going to kind of go this direction for a little bit to build ourselves back up, because we definitely want to be able to man it in-house.
Thank you.
Any other comments from council?
No.
Any comments or questions from the public?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to say that this is to go on the 20th agenda.
Yep.
The 20th?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
February 20th. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, that'll be on the February 20th agenda. The next item is to be on the February 6th agenda, authorizing an agreement with Willis of PA, Inc. for liability and workers' comp insurance broker services. And again, I will defer to our business administrator.
Yeah, this is another one that comes through every so often. We went out for RFP for our broker for health insurance and for our liability insurances back in 2018. And we started working with Willis Towers Watson, who happened to have been our health broker. But so we kind of do them. We flipped them over to do our liability broker work, and we've been very pleased with them. So we are looking to renew their contract through 2026, because it's definitely something when it comes to them getting to know us and our little, tweaks about how things run here and how our progress and operations impact our policies, our insurance policy needs, and such. It's always good to find somebody that you can continue to work with, and they have been consistently coming back, and you can tell we have 2 to 3 meetings, which will be the next resolution, that ultimately where they're trying to get the best deal for us that gives us the best amount of coverage at the lowest cost for us, but making sure that we're protected. So I'd like to continue our relationship with them.
Do I have a motion to place this on the February 6th agenda?
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
All in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? Thank you. That will be on our agenda on February 6th. And the last item, under Business Administration, authorizing various agreements for insurance services. Again, I'll defer to Kim, our
Yeah,
Business
and thanks to the work of Willis of PA, or referred to Willis Towers Watson, they were able to secure contracts for us for our general liability, our property insurance, the commercial property insurance, the umbrellas for them, the cyber and crime insurance, our police, the coverage we have for police services, and our public entity management liability services. We always meet before budget time, and they give you the, all right, we're looking at somewhere of an increase. It's always an increase, unfortunately, but increase from 5 to 10%, and so that's what I use in order to what I present in my budget. So there's always that meeting right after the budget's approved that they come back and they're like, okay, this is what we got for you, and they have this beautiful sheet and PowerPoint put together, and they're telling us about everything they did, and meanwhile I'm like, where are the numbers? I'm like, all I need is the numbers and see how close it gets to what my ultimate budget is for that part of our risk management budget. And this year, they came in with a surplus of $1,200. So again, this meets our criteria for the needs that we have for our insurance, and we're just looking for approval so that the controller and the mayor can sign on any documents that are needed to secure the policies.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to place this on our February 6th agenda?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Oh, excuse me. Any questions or comments from the council? Any questions or comments from the public? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? That will be on our agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Buckingham. I will now, we will go to a Rules and Administration Code Committee, and I will hand it over to Councilwoman Buck.
Thank you, President Washington. So I'm introducing an ordinance to go on the February 6th agenda. The ordinance amends Article 725, firearms and weapons.
You can just read the whole. Yeah, I would read the whole.
Okay. Amending Article 725, firearms and weapons of the codified ordinances to regulate the discharge of firearms within the city, and to put that on the February 6th, 2024 legislative agenda. Do I have a motion?
You want to just ask if anyone's here to.
Oh, before that, yes. I missed that piece. Sorry. Thank you. Is there anyone here to discuss this proposed ordinance? I'd love to hear from the commissioner or the captain, please.
I'm definitely planning to go. I just didn't know if I needed to yield or default to Attorney Flowers at all for the introduction of it, but
No, not,
Okay.
you can go ahead.
I will take it. So, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This is my first appearance in front of the new council. Thank you all for having me tonight. I appreciate being here.
Do you need a hard copy, Commissioner?
I don't. Okay. I don't. And I don't for a very simple reason. I'm not here to speak to anything about the knife portion. And I am also, as Ms. Queen knows, I'm not here tonight to speak in relation to the portion with respect to during the emergency situations as declared by the mayor that was previously already in the ordinance. I'm merely here tonight to speak about what we're looking to add and talk to you a little bit about why. This is a situation that recently came up in our GVI meetings. And what I would like to start out with is by saying that this is not for self-defense situations. I want to make that clear to people. I need to make sure that our community understands that this is not about targeting gun ownership or gun enthusiasts. This is not surrounding any lawful use of firearms situations. This is about making it easier to hold people who do wrong accountable. accountable without asking our citizens to bear the burden. And what I mean by that is, as it stands in the city of York, when somebody fires a firearm and in an unlawful manner, we have, whether they're targeting somebody, whether they're shooting recklessly or shooting in the air for fun, we have a very limited scope within the law to be able to hold those individuals accountable. If you strike somebody, their assault situations would be an aggravated assault or potentially a criminal attempted homicide. And if you are shooting in the air or shooting at somebody, it's still going to require a witness for a recklessly endangering charge. So to be able to do anything and hold individuals accountable without putting that on the back of somebody like my mom, to step up and say that I saw this individual shooting, we are grossly at a loss. The truth is, this community is not a rural community where there is space to hunt or target shoot. And I think we can all agree that guns are not a toy. Pulling a trigger shouldn't be something that's considered casual, and shooting in the air cannot be an acceptable form of recreation, not on holidays or any other day of the year. Every time you shoot a gun for any reason in this community, as a civilian or a lifelong law enforcement professional, you learn that you have to be careful about where your bullets are going. So whether it's shooting in the air near a home, shooting at a passing car that you think may be occupied by someone that you have beef with, or firing outside of someone else's job or place of business, or even shooting a gun next to a crowded school, daycare, or church, people should be expected to be extremely careful. And when and if they're not, in comes an ordinance like this that helps us and allows us to hold people accountable. So what does that look like? Well, in 2022, we had 128 shots fired calls and 67 shootings. So that gives you an idea of the quantity that we're dealing with. Now we flash forward to last year. Proudly, in 2023, after bringing on all the additional officers and putting the work of the GVI team and TIF's people on the street, I can admit we only had 64 shots fired calls and 20 shootings. And while that's great, and I'll be the first to admit that that's exactly what we were looking, the results we were looking to get, that we were expecting to get. Anybody that knows me knows I'm still never satisfied with anything. I can admit that. So what we do is we need to look at those numbers and look at the in-betweens. So what that means is in 2022, there were approximately 61 times that we had shots fired calls. We know that bullets were flying in the air, and whether it was officers being able to pursue those individuals and take them into custody, maybe even arresting them for the firearm, whether it was us responding to calls but not being able to go after the actor or hold the actor accountable because we had witnesses or victims that didn't want to participate in the process, or even in times where they got away. We know that having an ordinance, a rule like this on the books, it would allow us to do more to drive those numbers down. This, like I said, the 61 in 2022, or even the approximately 40 of last year. We just want to make sure that our officers have the tools to be able to do what you need us to do. And as we push to continue to make things even better for you, for my mom and my grandkids, for the people who live here, we believe as government that we should be expected to do more. So that's why we're here tonight with this, backing this legislation. Because while we admittedly had that fantastic year and made significant changes, I'm not ready to rest. We're not ready to rest, and I'm constantly working with my team to review what we're doing, come up with new ideas and additional tools, and how we can make things even better. And we believe this is one. Thank you.
Thank you. Solicitor Flowers, would you like to talk about how you came up or how this was drafted and
Yeah,
based on?
and I can also just clarify. So you received an amended version I think yesterday. And so on January 18th, the Third Circuit in Pennsylvania found it unconstitutional to limit young adults between the ages of 18 and 21 from, originally it's a crime to, for a person between 18 and 21 to possess a firearm during a state of emergency. The court found that to be unconstitutional. So in considering that, we decided there was already a provision in our ordinance that limited the carrying of a firearm during a state of emergency. So in light of that decision and the fact that this was going to go to council at this point anyways, we decided this was an appropriate time to amend that piece. So that's why section 725.01 of the original ordinance is now struck and replaced by 725.01, which is the definitions. And then the new section is 725.02, which is the regulation of the activity. And then section 725, what was 725.02 is now section 725.03. Does anybody have any specific questions for me or the captain or the commissioner?
Excuse me. I do have questions in respect to 725.03.
Okay.
So are we keeping that?
Right now, that's unchanged except for the numbering.
Okay. Because I understand that House Bill 1929 through the state permitted the use of switchblade knives to sell, distribution, and hold in possession.
Yeah, so the act decriminalized the possession of switchblade knives, but switchblades don't have the same, the possession of a gun is protected constitutionally. Switchblades don't have that same protection. So just as the city can regulate other conduct that's not necessarily a crime under state or federal law, it can regulate switchblade knives. If council wants to make an amendment to that to the ordinance, this is an opportunity. And since that, I'm not sure if that language is currently in front of you, but under the existing language of the ordinance, a switchblade is defined as a device where the blade can be opened by a flick of a button, pressure on the handle, or other mechanical contrivance. So the key here is like a spring-loaded action.
What other municipality, what other third-class cities has similar legislation or has legislation including the switchblade knives?
I'm not familiar with other specific municipalities, but I can find that language for you, or I can find that information for you.
Can you, Commissioner or Captain Lentz, can you comment on that at all?
The switchblades?
Yes.
Commission?
Yep.
I don't know if you know, I told you I'm not really in it with the switchblades pushing that. Unfortunately, I've been a police officer for 20. I'm struggling to say the amount of time at this point because it's going to date me. But for 24 years, and I have yet to make a switchblade arrest. I'm sorry, I can't lobby for that. I just can't speak to it. What I know is hurting my community and the young people that live here, and hurting our families is in relation to gun violence. And if we have laws and regulations on the books, whether it's city ordinance or Commonwealth of PA, that you can't light off fireworks in public locations, we should definitely have something on the books that we can't randomly shoot our guns in the air or in an urban community that's backlit with people's houses and families and daycares and kids playing in yards. So I wish I could speak more to the switchblade portion. I just didn't research it, wasn't focused on it. I apologize.
No, that's, Solicitor, could you repeat again why we can override House Bill 1929?
So we're not overriding. House Bill 1929 removed switchblades from the crimes code. So you can't, under Pennsylvania law, you can't, you're not going to get in trouble.
But you can't make it looser.
Right. So the city regulates all sorts of conduct that's not a crime. The city makes you register your tenant occupied property, and it's a summary offense if you don't do that. It's the same type of conduct where the city is allowed to have a stricter ordinance for things that aren't otherwise protected under the Constitution or otherwise excluded.
Thank you.
And so I see that, we do have the information in our legislation in regards to the switchblade knives, but we heard from our police commissioner that that isn't something that he's here to speak to, or if I can say in favor of. I would like to go on record with requesting a legal opinion regarding this legislation. Thank you.
And Ms. Council President, if you don't mind, just for clarification, so legal opinion as to other jurisdictions that have that?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Solicitor, has this switchblade knives section of the ordinance been in place? How long has it been in place, and has it been proposed to be changed right now? Or is this just a repeat of what's been in place for a certain period of time already?
So this was passed, the switchblade section specifically was passed by ordinance number 7 of 1956, and it does not appear to have been amended since. The only thing that's proposed to be changed under the current ordinance is it's going from section 2 to section 3. So just renumbering.
One more question. Did it previously have a financial penalty as per 725.99?
Yep, the penalty did not change. That's in the existing ordinance. The time for imprisonment did, but that's standardized with a summary offense.
Thank you.
And sorry, just to clarify, that penalty is applicable to the entire ordinance, not specifically the switchblade section.
What was that last thing you said?
Just to clarify that the penalty is applicable to all of Article 725, not just the switchblade section that we've been discussing.
Are there any other questions from council? None. May I? Okay. Okay. My first, so trying to learn what I'm allowed to do. So one of the questions I had was whether there was data to show that criminalizing discharge of a weapon gets results. And I went to the Every Town for Gun Safety website. It ranks Pennsylvania as number 17. It says, their quote, "We compared gun policy across the country, scoring every state on the strength of its gun laws and comparing it with its rate of gun violence. In states where elected officials have taken action to pass gun safety laws, fewer people die by gun violence." They add that exposure to community violence, including witnessing shootings and hearing gunshots, makes it harder for children to succeed in school. Another statistics they said annually nearly 4,000 children and teens ages 0 to 19 are shot and killed, and 15,000 are shot and wounded. Another point they make, children and teens who live in cities are at a significantly higher risk of gun homicides and assaults compared to their peers in rural areas. Another statement they have, U.S. Department of Education, they quoted, although black students represent 15% of the total K through 12 school population in America, they make up 25% of K through 12 victims of gunfire at school. Another item on their website, they have a Cities United report by Arnold Chandler, Forward Change Consulting. He writes, white and black children may live in the same city, yet experience it differently due to policy decisions that enforce racial segregation and disinvestment in certain communities. Gun violence is concentrated in black neighborhoods within cities, many of which are marked by high levels of poverty and joblessness and low levels of investment in education. All that found on the website, Everytown for Gun Safety. Other municipalities that have this type of law to reduce shootings are Bethlehem, Harrisburg, Philadelphia, and Reading. Bethlehem's was used as the model for this amendment. Sorry. One question I did have about switchblades, which I know you're not prepared to speak about it, and I know that it's been on the books for a very long time, but I don't know that many people were very aware of it. And I'm going to ask that in a minute. I want to finish reading what I found about discharging a firearm. Currently, under Title 18 of Pennsylvania law, it is illegal to knowingly, intentionally, or recklessly discharge a firearm into an occupied structure. So people should just know that it is currently illegal. You would assume everybody knows, but I'm just repeating it to make sure everybody does. There are no secure gun storage laws in the state of Pennsylvania yet. The Pennsylvania House Judiciary Committee has passed a child access prevention law that says if you have a child in your home and a firearm, you have to secure it. They say, according to the proposed law, those who do not would face consequences. The proposal will head to the House of Representatives for approval before moving to the Senate. And I just want to let people know that if you have a firearm and you need to secure it, the York County Regional Police has free cable gun locks for gun owners. You can pick one up at their locations, 33 Oak Street, York, PA, 17402, or 5570 Board Road, Mount Wolf, Pennsylvania. You can Google York, PA free gun lock for tips and where to get them. And Ceasefire PA is another website and organization. They've been advocating for child access prevention laws. And going right back up to my last question about switchblades, I apologize for the length of time. Shelters, overnight shelters that take in the unhoused. The people who work there do take switchblades sometimes. They're turned in, and the person that's working there has possession of that switchblade. And so now that worker has a concern, are they in violation because they have someone else's switchblade on their person? And two, if they do have them on their person that they have taken custody of it, are they supposed to call the police to come take it, handle it, or how should they proceed so they are not in violation of the law?
Gotcha.
Thank you.
I'm gonna work through these. I want to actually start with first, thank you for taking the time to do that research, but more importantly, thank you for having the courage to speak up and say it and make your position known. That I know that takes a lot. We all know that takes a lot. I mean, it's particularly as a new council member, I just want to say thank you. With respect to any of our partner institutions around here that are dealing with not just with switchblades, but with knives, sharps, or harmful items, offensive weapons or anything else here in the community, whether it's the shelters or even the school district, we're always open to being contacted and being able to come and particularly pick those items up. But for the individuals that as part of their process are either having things turned over to them or have screening processes like a lot of these institutions have now even, you're never going to be found at fault for possessing the item because it's either turned over to you. It's not going to be considered contraband. They're responsible for if it was either turned over to them or whether we get it through screening in the morning at the school district. You're always going to be okay as long as you have that justification. And I hate to keep going back to the discharging of firearms legislation, but the same thing with that. I know there was some concerns that people thought it was just sweeping legislation that would just suck anything in that had to do with if you had a firearm or potentially had to use it. As long as there was an articulable reason, like I said, self-defense situations, protection of property, a harmful animal trying to get into your home or attack somebody's child in the backyard. There are articulable situations and circumstances where it's going to be okay, it's going to be explainable. What we're talking about is the situations where it's not explainable, like with what you said, even with respect to the shooting into an occupied structure. Shooting into an occupied structure is only a crime if the people in the occupied structure are willing to testify to it. If we have it on camera, if we have the evidence to be able to support that it happened, it's like that tree falling in the woods. If the tree fell in the woods and nobody's around to testify to it, did the tree really fall? So that's where we're stuck right now with the discharging of firearms. And I know that this is definitely a situation when you start to talk about the $1,000 fine, so on and so forth, that it's more of the point and less about the penalty. Because honestly, it could easily be a recklessly endangering charge, and you could be looking at felonies and misdemeanors if somebody's willing to testify. So we understand that somebody would say, well, you're only talking about giving them a big fine. But a big fine is better than nothing. And I think we actually come out as government officials, as leaders, by standing with the people who live here to let them know that we support them, that we want to keep your streets as quiet as you want them to be. And so we're willing to do whatever it is we have to do, whatever that looks like, whether it's the cameras, whether it's the new legislation, whether it's adding the extra 12, 15 officers that you let us put on. We're going to keep doing what we have to do to keep those numbers driving down further and further and further so that we can watch this community continue to grow. Sorry, I will preach. You know that, so I'm going to sit down.
Okay, thank you. Okay, one more time. Any more council comments or?
Councilwoman, I could just jump in if you don't mind. Yep. So just to clarify as well, because I'm looking at the current ordinance. So under the ordinance, it's a violation to sell, offer for sale, or display a switchblade, or wear it under your clothes, conceal it about your person, or display it in a threatening manner. So the simple possession would not be a violation of the crime or a violation of the ordinance.
Okay.
And the ordinance does authorize the chief of police. It designates the chief of police as the person who can confiscate the knives that are collected. And I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to add that.
No, appreciate it. Thank you. Are there any comments from the public? Yes.
Manuel Gomez, resident, City of York. Chairwoman Bupp, welcome to City Council.
Thank you,
I hope you'll indulge me. I'll engage in a bit of a personal testimony, and then I will also defer to the chair with regards to a legal question. Maybe directed to the solicitor, if you'd like. I'm wondering what the mechanics will be in terms of the enforcement of this sort of ordinance. By way of personal testimony, I know that gunfire is widespread in the city. Some of us live in closer proximity to some of this gunfire. To not engage in hyperbole, I would say at least 3 or 4 times in the years I've lived here, I've caught myself in such close proximity. I've even been detained for simply passing through a neighborhood subsequent to gunfire. Witnesses, wasn't part of the act of the gunfire, wasn't a victim, thank the heavens, wasn't party to any of it, but just simply, I'll never forget one time an officer said, would you just walking through calmly? What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? What does it look like in terms of enforcement? Is it going to be that there's gunfire police swoop in, and anybody in proximity of this gunfire is now going to have to explain their presence, their state of being, and what it is that brings them there to the scene, or otherwise. Just a question. With regards to Section 72503 of the amendment, I'd like to get on the record the legal opinion of the solicitor, Madam Chair, with regards to any potential preemption as it pertains to Title 61, the Uniform Firearms Act, in Chapter 61. Are we of the opinion that because the language in the ordinance doesn't include anything about licenses to carry with regards to a state of emergency, that it may or may not be preempted by existing statutes in the Uniform Firearms Act? I'll give you the circumstance where the mayor, with some perpetuity, and it could be said due to caution, continuously extended, and for some fiscal matters, extended the state of emergency here in the city due to the pandemic. It doesn't mention that anybody with a license to carry shall be unaffected. That means that anybody with a license to carry would carry their firearms in due course. The ordinance as written would put you subject to those penalties. This is a question I'll defer to yourself, Madam Chair, and the solicitor to please state on record if it's of your opinion that it may be preempted by the Uniform Firearms Act. I think it's a valid question. Having had extensive time spent on matters regarding preemption and the Uniform Firearms Act throughout the region, I can tell you that's one that stands out to me. That as well as how this is going to be enforced and what is it really going to look at. If we could just speak something to that, only because it reminds me, as somebody that's frequently here at council, of the time that we changed the noise ordinance and how we all had to question, and some of you weren't around, what the enforcement would look like, what it would entail, what does it really mean, because it was such a drastic divergence from what the status quo was, albeit this is much more sensitive. Not just because it relates to guns, but it may color how the police interacts with the community by nature of the changes. I know myself, I wouldn't want to be in an area where gunfire erupts, and if I'm carrying about my person a firearm, and I have to explain to an officer, well, listen, I have a license to carry. They say, no, it doesn't matter. It's not what the law says, take it up with the courts. This municipality would actually be liable for the charges. Should they come and you lose in court any challenge, the municipality would be liable for the charges. Those were recent changes that took place not long ago. These are questions I'm throwing out in terms of potential impacts with regards to these changes. I'm not against it per se. If you engage in reckless conduct with firearms, it's going to draw a response. What type of response it is and how we handle the response and what does it really look like, and do we affect folks that shouldn't be affected? That's more of what I'm trying to get at. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Manuel. And I appreciate that Commissioner Muldrow will answer that. And I just wanted to let you know that that 725.03 that I think you were referring to was the pre-amended version. You were referring to the firearms use in state of an emergency, and that has been blended in.
It's been struck as unconstitutional.
Okay, it's been struck. So that in use in state of emergency is struck. So, but that piece is, but still the mechanics of it and what you're asking about, how that will work if there is gunfire, and how will the police handle people, innocent people walking through that area, that I'd like to hear that too.
I thank you so much. I simply wanted to clarify. The publicly available document as of, well, my arrival here in Chambers, it still had 725.03 language included. If it's a moot point, it's a moot point. No more time need be wasted.
Thank you.
And just to clarify, it should be struck. Oh, I see that it is in here, is in the hard copy as not struck. It's not supposed to be underlined. It's supposed to have strike-throughs in it. So I apologize about that.
Yeah, because again, I don't want any part of the state of emergency piece. I
Okay.
don't want to get into that because my mom is a licensed carrying person, so I'm just not weighing in on that.
Okay.
I strictly want to just speak to the questions you had for with respect to practice. I can absolutely tell you with a certain degree of certainty, having done this for so long, and even now in a leadership role with respect to setting expectations and casting vision, the practice itself, what people are seeing now, is not going to change. The way the response looks now, even when you explain the situation that you went through, and mine would be in the subtleties and the nuances, because you know how we talk and you know how I am. What they did, how they responded, the fact that they stopped to engage and talk to you and inquire that's all an expectation of good law enforcement investigative practices. When there's a shots fired call, my expectation, this young leader behind me, his expectation is that if you're on the street and you're working and you're wearing a New York City Police patch, you better be going. If you're in the building and you're not otherwise occupied and busy, you better be going. So flooding the area, that's just not only a good law enforcement practice, that's a good safety and security practice when something occurs of a serious nature, whether it's a fight, whether it's shots fired. Everybody that's working, that's available, that has the authority to help and a vest and a gun to be able to stop somebody from getting harmed should be gone. Getting in the area, it's when I say investigative practice, weeding out between the information that you're receiving from county control, the information you're receiving from other officers, tips, so on and so forth that you may be getting, what you know about the situation, what other officers may have observed. All that's flooding in, but you're also looking to make contact with each and every person that's there because each person potentially plays a role. It may not be that you're stopping individuals just because they're the actor. You're also stopping individuals because they're the witnesses. You're stopping individuals because they're the potential victims, which I've done myself. I've held gunshot wounds. Even in this job, in this role, with a nice suit on, I've held gunshot wounds since I've been on in this job. I held a young man who was shot in his eye. I held pressure on his eye in the back of my Tahoe until the rest of the ambulance and responding officers could get there. You have to stop each and every person that's in the area because you don't know what the role is that they play in the circumstance. It's how they're inquiring, for me, is the change that I'm proud that I think we've brought to this police department because they're treating everybody until they have additional information, like whether somebody's automatically saying that it is a black man in a khaki hat with a blue sport coat on and a light blue shirt with a bow tie that just fired the shots. I know how he's going to be treated because you've given me a cluster of actor characteristics to look for in that potential stop. So I'm treating that stop in the safest possible manner. Absent that person, everybody there should just be being treated like they could be potentially a witness or a victim until you know they're a suspect. So mine wouldn't be the fact that everybody's being made contact with. It's how they're treating you in the process because that is good police response. If they weren't coming and they were responding to gunfire in your neighborhood, then there would be hell to pay in 50 West King Street tomorrow. I didn't mean to say hell if my mom's watching.
It's in the Bible, so.
Oh, I like that.
Are there any other comments from the public? Okay. Hearing none, I'd like to ask for everyone in favor, say aye. No?
Is there a motion
Oh. Okay, didn't get to that part. Okay. Thank you. May I have a motion to put this on the February 6th legislative agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
You can't, because it's
It's only individuals who are on the Rules and Administration, which is Councilwoman Bubb, myself, and Councilwoman Dennis.
thank you.
You're welcome.
May I have a motion to put this on the February 6th legislative agenda?
You can move it yourself if you wanted to.
Oh. I move to put this on the February 6th legislative agenda. May I have a second? Hearing none. It remains in committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Bub. We now move, is there any council comment this evening? None?
None.
Oh, yeah, I do. Sorry. Hi. Yes. Okay. Council comment. I just wanted to congratulate the York RoboThinkers for their participation in the regional and the red team for the win and moving on to states. The team members are girls from city schools. Since 2017, Ray Ames has been teaching this after-school program in robotics. And you can follow the RoboThinkers on Facebook or youngthinkersofyork.org, and they accept donations. I would also like to thank the city organizations who held inspirational and commemorative events celebrating Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, from the large organizations such as Crispus Attucks, Logos Academy, Lincoln Charter, to the small but mighty and meaty David Overton Jr.'s MLK Prayer and Discussion Panel at Temple of Grace Ministries. David has an I Believe in You consulting. He encourages Black love, and you can find him on Facebook. January is also the time to use the law to your benefit. The homestead exemption is a tax exemption for property owners and must be filed with the county by the end of February. The form is a one-page form. It's online, or it can be picked up and filled out and left at the county administration building, property assessment office, 28 East Market Street. So you have a little more time to do that. And since it was so cold last week, I wanted to remind people that there is a state program called LIHEAP that helps with your home heating bills based on your income, whether a renter or an owner. The hotline number is 1-866-857-7095, or go to the website for the application. I guess just Google LIHEAP, LIHEAP. Thank you.
I might add that your local representative for Carroll Hill Evans for 95, their staff can help with any of these things. It's much easier to have their assistance. They're great.
Thank you, Councilwoman Bub and Vice President Buckingham. Do we have any administration comment? All right, thank you. Our next committee meeting will be February 28th, 2024 at 6 p.m. here in council chambers. Any committee agenda items are due by 12 noon on February 21st. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.